have Joshua here, right, with us? I suppose we do.
Yeah, hello.
So we have here. We have other people that are also interested in possibly becoming the flavor of Ubuntu. So maybe one thing to touch base on, discuss what's the what's the current state of things, is how to become an official Ubuntu flavor. So there's a document that I think Robbie and Erich, I think you two worked on it together, and it's I think it's looking pretty good. There's a few things that we need to flesh out, but maybe this is a good moment to talk about those requirements a little bit. I think the main requirement is the commitment requirement to be a flavor. So this is one thing that we need to advertise, that there should be a dedicated uploader for a flavor, or if not a dedicated uploader, then at least a dedicated sponsor for a given flavor, at least one. So we need to, if this can be provided to the release team, that's already a very good sign. Another thing is, of course, the commitment, the time commitment. So we do releases, and you have to be sure that every 6 months you have a team to prepare to work on the release, work on the beta, and keep supporting the release after it's released. That's one very important thing. So those two requirements, I think, are the main important ones from the document that we created. Does anyone have the document open so we can go through those points?
I don't know if there's a way to put them up.
Yeah, I'll pull it up real quick for me.
No, I think
that'd be awkward.
Yeah.
Has it been shared with all of them?
No, it's not been shared with everyone yet.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to do that right now. It's a bit awkward to do that this instant.
Yeah. No. Let's do that slowly.
I might be able to put it up on the screen or something, or is that just going to be awkward?
No, I think that's.
If it's awkward, just I won't do it.
I can give you the stream link. You can join.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Of course, some obvious things is flavors need to have everything in the Ubuntu archive. So that's the most obvious. So it's not you cannot have anything in a PPA. You cannot enable anything besides what Ubuntu uses. So basically, Launchpad and the Snap Store. Those are the two ones. And those packages need to be, they don't have to be named, they can be in the universe. So it's just a matter of having everything you need in the Ubuntu archive. I'm trying to think of other requirements that's what we might have. So maybe Robbie will be able to share the.
Yeah, so maybe I can just start by explaining
a
little bit of the background of the document. I can stand up.
Yep.
So the issue was that new flavors, I think, were struggling to work out what they needed to achieve in order to become a new flavor. The catch is new flavors don't happen very often. New flavors don't happen very often. So exactly what needs to happen, I get the impression, changes because stuff has moved along in our release process and things, which means that the documentation is kind of de facto always out of date. So there is some documentation in the wiki, but it's mainly, I think it wasn't really intended for, like, it was just like people's notes.
Yeah.
So the release team were like, oh yeah, we should check these things. So they wrote some notes. But then it started to get interpreted as, well, here's what the release team requires. But it wasn't necessarily up to date. It wasn't very clear because it wasn't really written for a general audience. And so that was causing a lot of confusion, I think. Eric raised this with us to try and resolve, and I said, okay, well, I'll try and drive because I'm not a flavor lead, I'm not on the release team, so maybe I can provide a better perspective of how this looks to be and what we can fix. So the key things that I wanted to try and do is like I've documented I've written this all up in the document. I've been talking to Eric and Joshua and some others about trying to get some feedback on,
Mhm.
on the exact process. But essentially, it's kind of like a not process. Like what I'm trying to say in the doc is, if you want to become a new flavor, these are our expectations about what we would want for you. But there's also a big list of technical things that you would need to do. Things like, well, we need a team in Launchpad that looks like this, and you need the structure to look of the seeds to be like this, and so on.
But this is something that needs to be understood. But this is something that the release team will help with.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is the thing, right?
So what I'm trying to do is take all of those technical things out of the doc.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to update the wiki page. Like I basically finalized this with Eric yesterday and Joshua online.
This is the Sarah page.
Yes. Yeah. And so I have some copy editing to do, and then I'll transfer it into the wiki. But essentially, it's like a friendly introduction to what you need to do. And for all technical details, here's how to contact the release team. We'll put you in touch with a specific named person of the release team. That's what I'm hoping to achieve. And then the technical side will be defined by the release team at the time. And it might be different depending on where we are in time, because in 3 years' time, when a new flavor comes along, the release processes might have changed such that we now need to do something different. It's a bit tricky to document. I didn't want to try and, like, it's perfectly valid to say we should document the technical things today.
As well.
Quite happy for people to try and do that in a different page, which we can point people to.
Mm-hmm.
But I fear that it will be out of date very, very quickly and flummox the next person in 3 years, because the release process in 3 years won't be exactly the same as when the doc was written.
One thing that maybe, so we might try to work with some flavors to get the technical details as well, like especially maybe since we'll have some new flavors, bring up some new flavors, we might create a template for it that we would host in our release team tooling, because we have those templates for point releases, for releases, archive opening, that we then convert to action items right now on Jira. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, we have those things. So we might create templates for actually what needs to be done step by step by a technical person, like from a release team member, to enable a flavor, so that we can track it and people will have like this one source of truth for the processes everywhere. So I think that's one action item for us in the future. But I agree, the first thing that we should do is just get the non-technical things updated. So the non-technical, how to become a flavor, documentation there, and move forward from that. I think so.
So we should probably also open up the floor to flavors. I wonder if we want to do a bit of an intro. We also have some prospective new flavors.
Yes.
Ken for Regolith. I don't know if we've got Unity as a new flavor.
Here's already.
There's one more.
Well, Joshua with cinnamon.
Yes, with cinnamon.
So
that's why I couldn't see you behind me.
Yes.
So those are the new flavors. I don't know if you want to introduce yourselves and then maybe connect with the existing flavors. One thing I did want to do was, for example, I was talking to this is probably very relevant for Joshua and for Ken. I'm not sure, Rudra, what your upload rights are currently, but we basically want to try and connect everyone. Thank you. So that we can get everyone sponsorship as they need in order to be able to make progress. And I was hoping that some of the existing flavors could help some of the new flavors and that kind of arrangement. Anyway, maybe I should step out of it now and let the flavors do the talking.
Yep. So, come on in.
Can I have a mic?
You have a mic. Introduce yourself.
Hello. Is that close enough? Hello, I'm the camera owner. I work on the Regolith desktop, which is, I guess, i3 plus GNOME kind of smooshed together. I basically use GNOME Session and GNOME Flashback in addition to i3 to kind of give you like that sweet configuration of GNOME, plus like kind of the tight key bindings of i3. We're working on migrating this to Sway and Wayland as well. I've been doing this for about 4 years. I I've used Launchpad in the past. I'm looking forward to working with Ubuntu and Canonical going forward. And my goal is to make tiling window managers or the tiling experience more inclusive to people that don't know about C compiler things that, a lot of, I think, tiling window managers kind of have out of the box.
And what with the Ubuntu Unity, that they were producing their own remix of Ubuntu until they became an official flavor. Are you doing anything right now?
Yeah, currently I ship as a X session in an existing Ubuntu setup, or as an ISO, which is essentially the standard Ubiquity setup that Ubuntu has today. And I remove Ubuntu session and add my session.
One thing that maybe would be nice to, before we proceed with the Cinnamon remix introduction, one thing to mention here is maybe like an overview. What merits does it give to, like remixes and others to become an official flavor? Because I think this is also something that we need to know. Like, what does it give it to me? Like one thing, of course, would be branding, right?
I'd be interested to hear what the flavors think it gives them. Erich, what do you get out of being an official flavor, or Rudra? What do you get out of it?
You want to go first, or
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to attach this.
No, it doesn't have to be. You can.
Okay. Earlier we did not have daily builds, so we would just release ISOs for each and every milestone, like the beta, then the release candidates and others. But now we also have daily builds which are running on the Launchpad servers. So that's one thing. Releases are much easier now, because instead of having to build it manually and upload the ISO every single time and maintain the builder, we're able to use Launchpad infrastructure to build our ISOs. So that has been the biggest advantage so far. And then obviously dropping the remix on the name, that's another thing. So yeah.
I would say the branding is a huge benefit, but also the infrastructure and the larger community as a whole to work with, being able to work with people from such as and get feedback from people who are more established in the community, such as those on the release team, those on the technical board as well, to be able to work with them to hash out larger problems that you might have. Also, to be able to bounce ideas off of other flavors, even to work with those, and just a larger sense of community. That's one thing that I always. I live and bleed community, so there's that. But yeah, so there's things of that nature that definitely help out. But also the infrastructure and being able to get the ISOs, as Rudra was just commenting about, is a huge benefit, because then we can get some practical testing in and get that infrastructure that we can go back and take a look at if there was a critical problem that we can then solve, and then do some further testing on that you couldn't get without such a pipeline such as that. You want to go?
Sure, why not? For me, it's helpful to become a flavor, because when you fix a problem in a core component, everyone benefits from it, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to a remix, it's sort of it can be a soft fork at times. You may have to expedite something in your quote unquote PPA to actually get it working. Whereas if you're a flavor, like I said, it benefits everybody. Yeah. And the branding definitely helps, but as Erich sort of said, it's more of the community and the people you get to work with. So.
Yeah, when I was bootstrapping Ubuntu Mate, I felt like I was wading against the tide, because you are an island, and because you're not operating within the greater whole, when you get breaking changes in your emerging remix, it's kind of on you to figure it out, as opposed to getting sort of good help and assistance from the broader community. And certainly I wasted a lot of time in the first 6 months or so creating build systems, which, you know, you just want to get by that and just leverage what's available in the infrastructure. And more recently, the Ubuntu QA community have really stepped up in the last sort of 2.5 years. And when it gets to release time, it's really nice to be able to log into the ISO tracker and see that 5 people have already done a bunch of testing for you, and you get a warm feeling that this is not completely crippled and broken. So yeah, I think I'm giving different perspective. Also, there are occasions where there are big changes in Ubuntu, and you get people from the foundations team and the release team reach out to you and say, hey, we're making this change, we see you're using it, if we make this change, are we going to break your stuff? Or in some occasions, if something's changing, you'll see the changes automatically made for you by the release team or the foundations team.
Oh yes.
Very difficult to follow up with new stuff because so much has already been said. I think that from our experience, at least in Ubuntu, even with a smaller team, we've been able to operate as a flavor because there is so much of, you know, of what all of you have already mentioned, infrastructure community around us, that we still manage to continue, and that it's not ever become a critical problem for us. So I think that sort of speaks for itself.
I don't know who else is a flavor.
There's
Is there another flavor? I'm not sure.
David.
Would you mind just asking Josh if you can talk to us real quick? Just want to make sure. Yeah.
Joshua, can you say something?
Something, yeah. Hi.
Okay,
I think
okay, we can't hear you, but
one sec, I'll try to fix that.
There we go.
yes, thank you.
There we go.
That's just, you know, David,
Right, so shall I say?
do it, and then
So from my end, I was the newest one. Well done. But the key thing, all new ones. The key thing is visibility. It's not only just visibility from the external community.
right.
With an official status, it does make a big difference in terms of support sites, like Ubuntu forums. You don't get hived off to the other distros and asking Ubuntu. You don't get instantly canned and moved off to another site. But you also get visibility with good sales like Łukasz there and others as well, because you're immediately on your radar, as it were, and that is absolutely key, especially when we get to the critical release states, and when we have sort of latest breaking changes. I know I've interacted with you as well, and others as well, to actually sort of get to the bottom of it then and see where the impact is. Is it just localized? Is it on the wider community? If I felt when I was creating the remix part of it there, you were sort of felt a little left field. You weren't immediately there as part of okay, you've got a problem, you need to go away and find it yourself, rather than you've been accepted as a part of the official the release.
Yes.
I found the remix stage extremely frustrating, and I've had no significant frustration since Ubuntu Marte's become official, because there's a wider group of people that can help and, like you were saying, qualify. If this is an isolated incident, you've got to fix for yourself. Or if we're all facing the same problem and we can work together.
May I add something?
Yes.
That's something that I've seen from the outside. There have been a couple of remixes in the time that I've been in Ubuntu that have come to me for sponsorship. And for me, if I'm looking to sponsor packages, new flavors and prospective flavors sort of get the top of my list, because from what I'm understanding, the process is, or not the process, at least it feels, like you said, sort of like you're in left field. So being an ambassador to those sort of communities is important, at least to me, to make sure that they're on that path.
What about flavors that were on time on the brink of death? Because that happened.
So we've heard a lot of nice things. Now, what can the release team do to help the flavors better?
So let's move to that, because that's another point here. But let's let Josh to introduce his remix. Yes, because we want to hear more about what his remix is about and his interest in becoming a flavor. So, Joshua.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh. I am 15. I normally don't really reveal my age, but here I am. It's nice to be with you guys. I think that we all should have wore our shirts based on what color our flavor was, but maybe next time. Okay, so briefly about the cinnamon remix idea. Cinnamon it's a really good desktop. It's really beloved. It's been around for almost 10 years, I think, ever since the GNOME 3 change thing. And it's been really, really well, highly praised for its usage for the end user. It's just being user friendly and everything. I've gone to some family friend houses and just see cinnamon running, and it's really easy to pick up. It's nothing complicated. It's very similar to what an average Windows user would see. So the idea of the remix is that it would also serve as not only bringing cinnamon to Ubuntu, but also potentially easing people who may not be familiar with Linux back into the Linux world, or to and from wherever into the Linux world.
Joshua, I have a question for you really quick. What would you say your biggest challenge is right now being a remix? What would you say in your own words is your biggest challenge right now?
I mean, I would have to agree with Martin about that. Remix can be frustrating at times. I think that currently my biggest annoying thing is probably the deal with the process for emitting new flavors, and also upload rates, which I know can also be tough to deal with.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question to the flavor leads here?
Yes.
Which of the flavor leads here are Mutus can upload into Universe? So Eric and Simon. Anyone else? No, the flavor leads. Okay, so that's something I think that the existing flavors could do better. I mean, I don't have a Mutu. I've got per package uploads, and I think this year I really need to get myself on Mutu so we can help the new flavors actually bootstrap them within sort of the flavor community. I would.
Yeah, so I think we're trying different things to help out with that. Like, we have different initiatives. Like, for instance, I think the patch piloting initiative in Canonical that we're restarting actually, this might help a lot, because so getting upload rights is a bit of maybe a little bit of a challenging thing, but the most important part would be document. When you want to apply for like upload rights, you have to demonstrate that you know what you're doing, and the best way to demonstrate that is basically by having a lot of uploads that were sponsored for you. And I think the patch piloting session and also the mentoring that it offers to future uploaders, that's a big thing that might change.
Can we just explain what? I don't know if everyone knows about that.
Real quickly, I just want to put on the record that I have volunteered to sponsor Joshua's uploads for now.
Very good. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, so
I think I was the last flavor that benefited.
So we're restarting this.
Yes.
So the canonical engineering teams are going to commit people. We've got that commitment from some of the engineering managers at Canonical, who basically manage the majority of Ubuntu uploaders at Canonical. They're going to commit to 4-hour shifts. That's going to be on a rota, and I hope that rota will be public. I'll try and make sure it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, has to.
And when they appear on shift, they're going to be in the Ubuntu Devil channel on the Barra chat on IRC. And you will see in the channel topic, it will say patch pilots, and it will have the name on it. And when they are there, that is a person you can ping and ask for help. So the patch pilot has 2 tasks. One is that they will look at the sponsorship queue. So If you don't already know, speak to one of us and we'll show you how to get stuff into the sponsorship queue and see the sponsorship queue so you know what the patch pilots are working on.
Yeah.
And the second thing that patch pilots will do will respond to you in real time if you ping them with help. And that can just be like, please bump my thing, it's for a flavor, and hopefully they'll pay attention to your thing first. Or it could be, you've had some feedback and you need to address that feedback, and that sort of thing is much easier to do in real time, and they're there. But it does mean that ideally you would be able to appear at the time a patch pilot is on shift.
Really quick question on that. Is that specific to Canonical employees, or can community members sign up to be part of that?
Anyone can sign up to be a part of it.
Perfect.
The challenge, of course, it's while we would like everyone to participate, it's one of those things where it's a little bit thankless sometimes. So, I think that I would expect that having Canonical commit time to it by paid people is probably going to be the most effective way we get it happening on a regular basis.
Because we want this time, we had patch piloting in the past, and it worked for a while. Then it didn't. The main thing is that people were signing up for shifts of patch piloting, but they didn't commit the time because it was either the free time or free time, like in Canonical, even because we had Canonical employees that were just volunteering there, but this was not assigned time from the company point of view. So this was like voluntary work, and we had people on the patch piloting session that they weren't doing, or they were just like patch in, but they were busy with something else or busy with life. So we want this time to be a very hard commitment. If you're a patch pilot for a given shift, 4 hours, you are a patch pilot. This is what you have to do. So if someone can do that commitment, sure. And so we also, basically a patch pilot, we would like those to be uploaders, like people with upload rights, because those can do the most. But you can also just volunteer to be a patch pilot if you're not, and then, for instance, shadow a different patch pilot that has some rights. And you can still do a lot of good things by reviewing other people's patches, checking the dev divs, maybe helping out with the dev divs as well, and then just asking someone else to upload those when you think they're good. So I think that's a really great initiative that might help in that. Yes, Lenny? Yep.
Yeah. So I was involved in the very first iteration of patch piloting when that was set up, like one of the old UDSs a long time ago. So none of this probably won't surprise you to learn that none of these thoughts are happening now for the first time. They all came around then. So two things to say, I guess. It's kind of useful for the company to mandate people to give blocks of their time to doing patch piloting, but it's actually not required, right? Like if you don't work for Canonical, or if you do and you have some free time, it's still useful for you to volunteer off. You don't need to be scheduled to volunteer, right? There's always items in the queue. Just feel free to add yourself to the list. Sure, documentation will be produced for how to do that, but it's a simple command on IRC. Work through half an hour, 2 hours, whatever time you've got to spare. Just feel free to work through the queue at any point, right? Just like the queue is there now, you don't even need to be on the list to do it. If you want to do sponsoring, feel free. But if you want to put your name up there, that's great, because then people know that they can ask you for help, right? That's the benefit of being the nominated patch pilot at a particular point in time. I forgot what I was going to say about upload rights. Yes. So that was extensively discussed at the time as well, in terms of who from the engineering team would be assigned to be a patch pilot. Should that be only the people who have upload rights or not, right? And there's a couple of benefits to, at least that we discussed back then, of having not just your uploaders be the people being assigned. One benefit is it's still helpful for the people being sponsored if they can get any feedback on their dev
Exactly,
right?
yes, that's what we
Anything that gets them closer to having items in the queue which are ready for an uploader to then pick up and just be able to upload, say, yes, this looks good, right? That's really great, right? Even if you can't upload it yourself, you can help somebody get closer. And I guess, what was the second benefit I was going to say? All right, it's useful for the people doing the reviewing as well, right? Because if they don't have upload rights then, but they're doing patch piloting shifts, this is evidence for them when they then later come to kind of want upload rights, right? You can say, I've reviewed 100 dev divs, right? And then every time I say it looks good to me now, the actual sponsor agrees with my request and they don't request any further changes, right? It's kind of like another form of sponsoring just sponsoring of your reviews rather than your actual changes yourself. So yeah, basically, I would suggest if you're setting it up again, don't limit yourself only to people who currently can upload. Please do consider, people on the Ubuntu engineering teams who probably ought, in the majority of cases, to be working towards eventually getting upload rights themselves anyway, right? And that's a very good way of them
thanks.
getting
It's
there.
It's a really good point, and I've just made a note that we're going to, when we arrange the patch piloting rotas, I will mention that basically I'm separately trying to gather a list of people in Canonical who are trying to get upload rights.
Yeah.
And I will say, well, the expectation is that maybe we can have them shadow other patch pilots who are on shift and make them coincide in shifts or something.
Yeah, however you want to set it up, right? They can have shift. Yeah, we did consider. I think we did have it like this back then. You could just be a patch pilot even if you couldn't upload, but you can't sponsor them. You can just leave them in a better. You can leave the queue. Yeah, it's better, right?
We said
you'll leave the queue in a better state. That you found it.
That's what we said. Like we want mostly that we would love to have uploaders doing that, but not only. So I think since we're we just have a small time slot. One more thing that I want to mention about becoming a flavor, and I think one more thing that we need to do is we should probably make sure that Josh has someone from the release team assigned to him to help out with getting things moving for him becoming a flavor, for Cinnamon becoming an official flavor. We will also keep in touch here to make sure that we can have that you have the coverage that you need, that you have some people that you can ask questions to. But I think we have our own emails, so we'll keep that in the loop. One thing to remember about being a flavor, it's not always just the good things. One thing to remember is we discussed that a little bit earlier. You have to acknowledge that you will, in some very specific cases, lose a bit of freedom, I would say. This, for instance, happened during the Kinetic release. So basically, we leave flavors a lot. The flavors can do what they want as long as it's coherent with Ubuntu, of course. But for instance, there are some tough calls that we have to do, and it's always up to debate. But for instance, if we're saying like, okay, so we have some regression, but for reasons we decide that we still want to go with that. So this might be this thing where you might feel a little bit overridden. But on the other hand, there's nothing stopping a flavor to draw the line and say, okay, I'm not releasing the flavor this release because of this, because I don't want this bug to be part of my images. So I'm just skipping this release because it's no. But yeah, so it's not only. So there are some responsibilities because we want to be like one living organism. We never will basically do things without discussing with flavors first. Like we don't want to do that. We will not do it. But we might be very insistent about that. And in the end, someone has to make those tough calls. So just keep that in mind. It's that's how it is. Okay, so yeah, we'll keep in touch about the becoming a flavor. And I, whenever you have like whoever has some remix that they make or want to make, and like. We'll have better documentation soon. We'll have better requirements. For now, it's just best to just reach out to either the technical board or the release team or both, and we will figure things out with you.
I might add something very quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be, not just me, as a result of this event, there's a small team of us forming, and we're going to be proposing another flavor. So I'd like to work alongside Joshua and Ken as they work through the becoming an official flavor process to maybe add to the documentation in terms of like the technical requirements as we move through it as like an outcome of us pursuing things. I'm going to be way behind where these two are in terms of when we're actually looking at images in the infrastructure. But
that would be really good.
Yeah, we're working on what we hope to be a new Ubuntu flavor.
So can I, Łukasz suggested that we have nominated people. Well, we agreed we would have nominated people on the release team for each of the flavors. Would that be something that we can do now? I see a couple of release team members here.
Yeah.
Enough members of the release team for it.
So you want a different release team member for each flavor?
Yes, I think that's
Well, but
for every flavor.
you mean like having someone selecting someone for the future flavors?
No, yeah. So we've got three. We've got cinnamon, whatever Martin's planning, butterfly, and regolith.
Regolith, yeah.
So those are currently our prospective new flavors. And we said that when they contact us, we will nominate a release team person to be their coordinator. It doesn't mean that they have to do all the work. It's just a point of contact to be redirected to the right.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do that. Like,
Ken, where are you located? Okay, I'll be your point of contact since we're in the same time zone.
what about Josh?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It would help guide new flavors or any new remixes that come along in the future. Sort of having someone who can individually work on them and be able to have that experience help them in the future.
So what time zone are you? Are you in the US?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. It's 6:41 in the morning.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Thank you for joining us then.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Well,
I would be happy to help.
So like maybe the two of us could coordinate, because you're in the compatible time zone and I have the hats, so we can
I
coordinate.
can be in whatever time zone I need to be, really.
Okay. So let's.
And Martin.
That would be Łukasz.
Except for through this morning's session.
Yeah. And I could be, since we are compatible time zones, so we could be,
Yeah, and
for butterfly.
I've got a co-lead, and he's in Switzerland. So.
Okay, so that's it's even better. Okay, thank you.
And did any flavors have anything to add?
If we want to go back to Brian's question about if there's anything that this flavor see that's not working well.
So we will get to that in a moment.
There's only 8 minutes left.
Oh crap! Yeah, this is why I want to. this is why I want to go fast, because I want to give an overview of things that we gathering feedback here, so that people know that we are looking into improvements from the release team perspective for flavors, and not only for the release process. So for instance, one thing that we will try to fix as soon as possible is the visibility. So we try to keep as much of the process, things that we do, as much visible as possible. We made a small mistake of moving the release team checklists to a Jira project. The reasoning for that was we wanted to have better ownership of tasks, but sadly that Jira board is private for unknown reasons. We're trying to get it public so that everyone can see what are the steps of the archive opening, who's doing what, when, where, and even maybe someone could volunteer to help out. Yes.
On that point, I would like to touch base with someone on the release team. I have a list that I've created over time for a Ubuntu new release checklist. It's a very, very, very detailed checklist.
Okay.
It goes through. It even has Linty and Vim and all of that in there. So I would be interested in cross-referencing what you guys have versus what I have, and seeing if there's anything.
So this is all public. So for instance, we have those templates. I'll share the URLs with you. Those are on Git that we use to generate those cards. So you can know the process, but right now the private part is seeing and watch moment we are for a given milestone right now. So this we want to do much better. We want to be more public as release team and as foundations team from Economical here about the roadmap. So what do we plan for the current cycle? So I think I'm not sure if you flavors are you doing something similar already. So do you have public roadmap for a cycle that's starting? Do you have something like this? Sure. Because maybe this would be something that we could all do in a more consistent way. Always, let's say, cycle starts, we have a plan. This is what we want to do for this cycle.
I know for Ubuntu Studio, we try to kind of blog post a little bit about how this is what we would like to kind of accomplish during this cycle. I touched base a little bit during my presentation yesterday about what we would like to do,
Yeah.
but we've got nothing posted publicly yet, unfortunately, because a lot of it just kind of comes from my brain and whatever I discuss with my team on IRC. But we would like to definitely get that out public, and it's just been a matter of how much time does Eric have to post this on the blog. that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Because-
If I get input from the team about something to change or add, that doesn't go into our planning doc. It just sort of happens organically. So more rigor around that.
We have to. I think we all need to do better, because I noticed that we were doing a lot of things. Like we had some plans in our heads. Some things just like organically appeared. Then the end feature set was the release notes, but I think that's too late. Like if we're saying what we're adding for our release at the very end and only at the very end, that's we will still have some flux, but this is one thing that we need to do.
Right.
We're also working on, because I'm not sure that's publicly visible, but I want to people know, we are working on Ubuntu image. So that's the image building tool. So as you know, like currently the image building side is very complicated. We're trying to make it just one command that you run, so anyone could do that.
And then there's when as you get closer to release, you realize how much those goals have had to change, because you've had to go back and fix bugs as they've come in.
Yes.
And that happened this past release cycle like crazy. FFmpeg 5 threw me for a loop.
Oh
for
yes,
sure.
yes, that was a big one for everyone.
I don't want to speak for Simon, but with regard to Ubuntu image, I'm keen to collaborate on that and contribute to it, because if I'm bootstrapping something, I'd like it to be whatever the new thing is going to be to reduce the friction.
For the record, I'm in agreement.
Yes, for the record, good. We have it's all recorded. So we're working on that. Is it? I don't know. I'm just kidding. Or not? Who knows? So the better tooling is in flight. So right now, Ubuntu image can build pre-installed images. We want 2310 would be the time when we would hope that we'll build ISO images, ISO installer images as well. We'll see how that goes. There might be some small redesign happening, but that's completely separate from that. And we also make sure that some of the documentation things that the release team has is on the wiki page, and it's outdated. For instance, the checklist, the release process, point release process, wiki pages are there, just outdated. We did not update them. We will move some things to discourse, as this is I think this is the de facto place where we want to keep documentation nowadays. So we'll try to push on that. But yeah, talking about improvements, like from flavors, like what do you think we could do better in the release team, and what can we do together better to make the experience better?
So this, go ahead. With Ubuntu, one of the things that we sort of had a challenge with is the ISO QA tracker, as in it's only about a limited. I'm speaking very vaguely and briefly about it, but there's room for improvement, and we have created an external checklist in our soon-to-be deprecated Fabricator instance that actually goes through about 20 different test cases, and we have an extremely good QA team that goes through and completes that list. I'm always appreciative of them, and I think importing some of that into the ISO QA tracker, I'm not sure where Chris's discussion got on the mailing list, but it would definitely be a good idea to incorporate more thorough testing within that.
Yes. Oh yes.
I'd just like to echo that. The ISO tracker is great for the wider community to do what is basically smoke testing. We have no idea how to add new test cases or manage them there, so we do it all in GitHub within the team. And the lack of SSL on the ISO tracker and its speed is not great.
Yeah, it's an old tool. Brian, you noting all of that? Making notes?
Taking notes.
Yeah, I think.
There might be gaps in the notes.
Yeah. So I agree. Like we need to have a better experience with testing.
So I'm currently managing the Ubuntu QA team, and the Ubuntu QA team is responsible for the auto package test environment and the error tracker. and somewhere in there is the ISO tracker. There's only currently there are only 2 people on the QA team, but I'm hiring, and I recognize that the ISO tracker is a pain point, and it is something we do want to work on and improve eventually. It's just every Ubuntu developer depends on the auto package test environment, and when it tanks, it slows down the development of Ubuntu in general.
So that's the priority.
So subsequently, that ends up being a higher priority. But I have done some work on revamping some of the test cases, and I've heard what you said, and some things are easily achievable. And talking about the test cases is one of those, and working on getting them better organized and making it easier for people to update the test cases because your installer might change.
So a few questions. So is, for instance, the feature of the ISO tracker for retriggering builds, is that, are you using that frequently?
It doesn't always work. Like if you have a failed build,
Yes.
you can't retrigger.
Yes.
That's a
Okay.
bug.
Rebuild.
As far as I'm aware, it just puts it in a queue when there's a cron job.
Yeah, but then the cron job doesn't take it.
Ideally, that would be re-implemented in webhooks, but that's a different discussion.
That's a complete.
Yeah. So yeah, it is very troublesome if a rebuild request doesn't result in a build, because this is weirdly designed here. But yes, it's yeah. Okay.
About some issues. Are there any other flavors that want to complain about something?
He's fishing.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, well, working with the release team, are there things that the release team can do to improve processes,
Yes,
or help facilitate flavors to do more?
I don't know yet because I haven't really gotten started yet. I've used Launchpad, but that's about as far as I've gotten.
yeah. I think it can. I think we identified the the Launchpad was slow in the past for PPAs, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
that was
the
one thing.
timing is erratic, and I try to do rapid iteration development with the packaging. So if a package takes 8 hours to build, it really screws up my ability to move fast.
So we did say we'd bump his PPA.
Yeah, we will.
See about bumping his PPA priority.
Any other pain points?
That's a really good one.
That's a very good one.
Maybe for the flavors, slightly elevated priority.
First, I'm going to give the opportunity if anyone else. When it comes to the, jeez, what's up?
How do you put it?
How do I put it exactly? Oh, yes. So in the past for the Ubuntu CI, we had that going for continuous integration. We had the tip of upstream LXQt master, the main branch, and that was included in just a PPA. And I ended up having to fork Brittany to be able to get it to work with PPAs. So I was kind of wondering to see is if there's like Ubuntu CI is also down at the moment. It was also using Jenkins. So if there's a central place we can organize that continuous integration, that would be great.
Ooh, the CI hook directly.
Yeah, but that's, you mean Brittany. So running auto package tests for a PPA in that case, you mean?
Yeah, that's auto package tests and everything else that Brittany includes.
So this is something that's just a proof of concept for now. So I got the request from the server team to do because they have this PPA tools thing, a really cool project. But one thing that we're considering is I'm calling it Brittany as a service. So basically being able to run Brittany on any PPAs that you want. This is still something that I'm experimenting with. It's not hard to do, but we need to see the pros and cons. But this might be something that you could use, for instance, right?
I would be interested in that discussion. Yeah.
Anything else? Anything that we could make better? There's a question there. Excuse me?
I heard the word biletto.
Yes, biletto.
I always heard that it's been decommissioned.
Yes.
Do you have any replacement or?
So the idea is to basically, right now we still don't know if we want to completely decommission biletto or not. Most probably yes. I think what will happen, like we might have this Bilet as a service instead, Britney as a service thing instead, and use the PPA tools from the server team for all the other things like creating PPAs, ephemeral ones, and running tests as well nicely. So I think it might be decommissioned. There's a high chance of that. We're still not sure, but right now it's still in maintenance mode. And instead we'll have a different set of tools. We'll probably rip out some of the bits, like the Britney bits from Bileto, and just use that.
The important thing to consider, the only reason I do use Bileto instead of PPAs is because it has RISC-V enabled, and I don't have access to actually enable that in my PPAs. So that is the primary reason, because if you're doing, for example, a queue transition, you want to make sure all of your
everything, yes.
Yeah. And I agree with that, because that's one thing where, trying to test a package and then I can't build in my PPA, for instance, the RISC-V, and then I go to upload it, all of a sudden it breaks because of RISC-V.
I understand there's a security concern with virtualization, but it would be good to enable people with uploading address to be able to
I've experienced that.
Yeah.
When you're testing in a PPA, you upload and then it breaks.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't know why. Well, you do know why, but go dig in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
The only thing I would add is enough time has elapsed that I can't remember how to bootstrap a flavor as a remix without the benefit of the canonical build infrastructure. And I haven't looked, but that wasn't documented when I did it 7-8 years ago. There may be some documentation to help flavors that aren't even here yet, that have an aspiration to become a flavor, some sort of starting point, and maybe that's something the three of us can create.
As part of that.
I'm guessing you're about to tell us you've got a solution.
So yeah, I do believe the live CD customization page does exist, and that was really useful when we were building the Ubuntu Unity ISO builder. So
I know what page you're talking about. Is that still current? Does it still work?
oh yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Really?
yeah, it does. It's being updated quite regularly, so
It's been updated?
yeah.
Okay. Done.
Not that way. Yeah.
We should. So we can check one thing from the checklist then.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. So anyway, so if any, because we are out of time almost. Yeah, we are. So if any of you has any ideas or things that we do wrong, you think, and we could improve, then just feel free to reach out on us on an IRC or by email. Like we can discuss. We can have a discussion. Yes. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
We'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.